He said, quote, "I just think LeBron's antlers are in platinum and Michael Jordan's may be in gold. Why? Because he had to be compared to Mike. Who did Mike have to be compared to?" Here's the video. Listen for yourself.
Mike transcended the game. When Kobe came, Kobe was a silhouette of Mike, right? That's everything, which is great. But LeBron is the first player to have to deal with a 24/7, 365 news cycle of sports and opinions from those that's not even capable or carry the expertise to give a valid opinion, right? In addition to, no, I'm not gonna really do it how y'all want me to do it. I'm probably gonna do it how I decide to do it. We all know that don't go over well, right? And so then you have this environment in this sports society that's created, right? And so now you have the root against. That's a whole nother thing that Mike never had to deal with because his hardest critic was probably Peter Vecsey.
Yep. Straight up.
You see what I'm saying?
Fucking Peter Vecsey.
But I just think LeBron's antlers is in platinum and Michael's may be in gold. Why? Because when you think about, he had to be compared to Mike. Who did Mike have to be compared to?
Talk about it.
Yo, Ashley, first off, shout out to Rich Paul. That's exactly what you're supposed to do to support your homeboy, right? That's how I feel about you and Dak Prescott, right? Like, you can't go out there and tweet about Shador Sanders, okay? Shout out to Rich Paul. You know you're off, right? I'm not saying he's right. You know you're off. We're talking about deers and antlers and platinum and gold. I've never seen anybody put that stuff together to debate who's the GOAT. And then when you look at everybody responding, you know, he's sitting there for 2 minutes talking about right, and Gilbert Arenas and Kenyon Martin, everybody just looking at him like, bruh, like, we not validating this. But I'm not mad at Rich Paul. This is what he's supposed to do. What do we expect? That's his people. They came up together.
Okay, but you know what you're supposed to do and it being factual are two different things, right? Right?
But you said it last week about your Dallas Cowboys. You were like, yo, sometimes I'm a fan.
You know what you're supposed to do and what's factual are different things, right? Because in that clip, he said numerous of things that were not factual. He said that LeBron is the first athlete to be criticized by people who don't have the gravitas to criticize him. So no other athlete in the history of the NBA has ever been criticized before LeBron James. Kobe Bryant wasn't criticized. Shaquille O'Neal wasn't criticized. Michael Jordan wasn't criticized. Dirk Nowitzki wasn't. D Wade was. I mean, the list goes. Nobody was criticized before LeBron James. Is that what you're telling me, Rich?
Did it sound like he was trying to, imply, that the social media, like, they didn't have to live in that era?
No, he said verbatim that LeBron is the first athlete to be criticized on a news cycle by people who do not have the gravitas. He didn't say gravitas, that's my word, to criticize him.
That's not right.
Every athlete in the history of the sport's been criticized. You can say maybe he's been criticized more. That might be an argument you can have. But to say that he's the first to ever be criticized is just factually incorrect.
I feel like he took it too far, and that's what you usually do when you're not really in position to fight, right? Like, this is a tough debate for LeBron, his team, and LeBron fans to say, you know what, we're the GOAT. We're better than MJ, right? But I think what he was trying to say is, back then it was just a couple of men and women on the beat. There was a couple of stations, right? It was more local than national. Obviously, there was a few teams and a few players that had national coverage. But nowadays, everybody has something to say. Look at the chat. Our chat is booming today, right? Everybody's on Twitter. Everybody's on Instagram, right? Now you got men and women in the locker room that aren't just journalists or working for a station. You got bloggers, or I run this website. So he is facing something different than the guys that came before him, 100%. But I just think Rich took it
I
too
feel
far.
like 24/7 critique is wild because there are what people call LeBron sexuals that defend LeBron to the death. So
Shannon Sharp.
there are media talking
Is
heads.
Shannon Sharp a sexualist?
Is he a big LeBron fan?
You really don't watch.
I don't watch that
Undisputed.
show, so you know what he is.
Yes.
And Skip was a big LeBron hater. That I do know.
Yeah, right.
There are literal talking heads who defend LeBron on national television. So the 24/7 is a little bit of exaggeration because I feel like there's so many people who speak highly of LeBron consistently, day in and day out, especially during the NBA season. But I'm saying the 24 news cycle is unfair to even bring into the conversation because a 24-hour news cycle didn't exist in different eras. So you can't criticize someone for not being criticized 24/7 when 24/7 news cycles didn't exist. But if we're talking about criticism, Dennis Rodman was one of the most criticized athletes. Michael Jordan, they were following him to casinos and saying that he was drunk during the flu game was actually a hangover game. They were talking about his divorce. They were talking about his cheating.
It is different,
Dan Marino was partying and people were following him. There were so many athletes they were doing this to.
Ashley, no.
They weren't?
If that era had social media,
for sure.
oh my goodness, the Cowboys and those stories.
I know.
too,
What
and-
I'm saying though is that you can't knock and you can't say that your friend is criticized more than anybody because there's a 24-hour news cycle when you're comparing apples to oranges. They were criticized heavily for what the landscape of media was in that era.
Right.
So you're comparing two different things, and that's an unfair comparison because you can't say Dennis Rodman wasn't criticized like LeBron when LeBron came up in an era where he was being able to be criticized in different forums. It's an apples and orange conversation.
And we talked about this, I think, a week ago, Ashley, when we're trying to compare eras, right? It's so hard for us to have this debate, right? One era, who was it that came out? Was it Magic Michael Jordan started this debate because he said Magic is the point guard, period, the best point guard ever, period. And we started this whole conversation, and it's like one generation's always going to lean towards how it was in their generation and vice versa, right? But I truly believe this. If you put an MJ in this era, he will adapt. You put a Dan Marino in this era, he will adapt. And vice versa, because you have to. So, like, for us to take this debate to that, I feel like it makes no sense. Can we just focus on the court? Can we focus on that? But I do believe when you have the GOAT conversation, the greatest versus the best, you got to start looking at impact. Michael Jordan, his shoe, and his impact on culture, LeBron's, et cetera, et cetera. So there are some things, but they're taking it way too far. They're taking it way too far. I saw something on Twitter, Ashley. I don't know if you saw this, but it's like LeBron's. You call them sexualists.
I didn't know. They're called LeBron sexuals on Twitter.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's wild. But there was one tweet that I saw a couple of days ago where it was like LeBron's fans take the debate so far where they had a picture of MJ and LeBron both at 5 years old, like their little kindergarten picture, and LeBron had an elephant in his picture, and they said, LeBron 1 elephant, MJ 0. Like they're trying anything to win this debate, and it's hard. It's hard.
I just also don't understand the part of LeBron being compared to Jordan is why his antlers are in platinum, because Jordan never had to be compared. Wasn't Kobe compared to Jordan? Wasn't Kobe constantly, every time Kobe did something, it was Jordan, it was Jordan, it was Jordan. So we're just going to skip over Kobe Bryant. That's one. And then two, we're talking about Michael Jordan, who was playing against Larry Bird, who was playing against Magic Johnson, who was playing against them fresh off their MVP years. Was he not compared to those guys? Was he not chasing that greatness? Was he not constantly being in comparison to that? Dr. J? I don't understand why we're writing revisionist history. I'm very confused by this.
I'm with you when you write. Again, there was something else I saw online where a gentleman was like, we forget the first half of Jordan's career, right? in the first half of Jordan's career, he wasn't the GOAT. He was being compared to all the names that you named. So you're absolutely right. But again, this is just Rich Paul positioning he and his friend as the GOAT.
I honestly
Can you blame him?
No, everyone needs a friend. Everyone needs a friend like Rich Paul.
This is why they're winning. Keon, this is why they're winning. They stick together. Him, Mav, Carter, Rich Paul. This is what it's supposed to look like.
Everybody needs a friend like Rich Paul.
This is what it's supposed to look
I
like.
need you to feed my delusions. I need you to stroke my ego. I need you to go out there and tell me I am the greatest. I need you to tell other people I'm the greatest. I need you to come up with the most just like insane rationale to prove your point, whether it's true, whether it's not true, whether it's somewhat true, whether it's somewhat infactual. I need you to go out there and tell everybody who will listen that I am the greatest there ever was. Rich Paul, you have my respect. That is what you call loyalty. LeBron got a crew around him. I respect it.
Guess what? Those little private dinners that we be having, and we drinking the big bottles of wine and big bottles of champagne, them flights that we be on, your ass ain't gonna be welcome. You go out there and say anything else, you're not invited to the party. LeBron put this man in position. This man is a multi-millionaire because he put him in position. Now, has he earned it since then? Absolutely. But please, LeBron, there ain't going to be no clutch sports without no LeBron putting him in position. So you better,
hey, man.
Let's take a break.
I'm not. We can't take a break. We have one more thing before we have to end it. Listen, on the same episode of that podcast, Rich Paul.
There's more. Oh, okay, my bad, twin.
Rich Paul was going in on this podcast. Listen, he was chirping, talking.
Shout out to Gil.
He was talking. Rich Paul was on the same podcast, and he disputed the claims that Stephen A. Smith made recently on Paul George's podcast P. He said, quote, "Cap, come on, man. Everyone in the world knows he's not saying that to me. There's no such thing as get the F out my face." Here's the clip.
Stephen A. Smith went on the podcast P show recently.
Cap.
We're going to get there.
Immediately. Immediately.
He had this to say about when he told you he had LeBron at number 2.
I got him as the second best player in the history of basketball. I got him ahead of Kareem. I got him behind no one but Jordan. And I said to Mr. Chirper himself, Rich Paul, my boy, and I said, you act like that's an insult. This dude, it is an insult. I said, get the fuck out of my face.
What?
Cap. Get the fuck out of my face. Exactly what I said to him. I don't want to talk to you no more. You can't talk to me about it.
So we got you here, so I need to know on the record, did Stephen A. really tell you get the fuck out of my face? So from that,
let me answer that question.
I just need to hear Cap one more time.
Come on, man. Anybody in the world know me, he's not gonna say that to me. First of all.
That doesn't
now,
matter to response.
now, if you want to add context to it, because Stephen A. is my guy. We have cordial conversation, but I'm not. I can debate all day long. So when you talk about there's no such thing as get the fuck out of my face. No. Now you can say, oh man, get out of here. Let's just add context for the viewers, right? Okay, fine. Okay, so we move on.
I just want to let the record show that on this very show, when we reported this story, I said there's no way in hell this happened.
You did say that.
I said that there's probably some truth to this, but Stephen A. is definitely salt baying it and putting some flavoring on it, and this did not go down the way that he said. And everyone in the chat was like, Stephen A., don't be lying. Stephen A., don't be exaggerating. Stephen A., don't. You heard it from the man's mouth himself that did not happen the way Stephen A. Smith happened. I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
You listen.
Stephen A. be telling some tall tales sometimes.
It wasn't just the chat. It was me too, Ashley. I'm like, why would Stephen A. come out and say this? You know what I'm saying? Especially that way, because we all got platforms now. You can go on Gil's Arena and say that ain't happened. Now you look like Boo Boo the Fool. Okay. I was talking to JP, our producer, one of our producers of the show last night. He was putting a rundown together, and I'm, walking to Walgreens. I had my little bonnet on, about to get some shaving cream to shave my legs because, you know, I'm coming here to get some. I'm telling too much. Because I don't know why I'm going down this. Because we're going to get film of me doing yoga. And I didn't want Keon to get the happy baby. But anyways, I'm talking to JP. Sorry, too much information. I'm talking to JP. And I'm like, yo, why would he say that, bro? Like, so you're telling me that Stephen A's a liar. And he's like, no, he's not a liar. He's just a sensationalist. That's what he does, to your point. So you definitely
he's an exaggerator.
Correct. But to me, like, that's fraud. You can't do that. You can't do that. You can't do that. But there's more to this story, too, because Rich Paul was like basically like, well, he ain't say the F word, but he said everything else. So I don't know how much salt he's throwing on it.
Listen, I said because Stephen A's been telling some stories. What was the other story that he told?
The doctor with the ball brother.
Apparently, he spoke to Lonzo Ball's doctor, and the doctor told him after he went on First Take the day before and said that that Lonzo Ball couldn't get out of a chair. Yeah, and right. Lonzo Ball drops the video going up and down, doing a one-legged squat, getting in and out of the chair on one leg.
Talking to him,
saying, yo, what's up? Like, da-da-da. Stephen A then gets on his show the next day and says that Lonzo Ball's doctor told him that he couldn't get out of the chair and that he's not healthy. We know he's not healthy. He's missing an entire season. You said he couldn't get out of the chair. He gets up out of the chair. And also, you mean to tell me that an NBA doctor, or not an NBA doctor, a doctor that works on NBA athletes, because he may not just have NBA clients, violated HIPAA so that you could get the scoop. Is that what I'm supposed to believe? Like, be for real. This is what I tell you. Stephen A be lying. Like, I'm not calling him a liar, but he be lying. He be lying. Okay, he be exaggerating. He be telling some tall tales. MJ texted Stephen A at 5:45 a.m. to tell him.
You think he lied about that?
Stephen A, that Magic Johnson is better than Steph Curry.
You don't think MJ texts Stephen A?
Do I think that they text each other? Absolutely. Do I think that MJ texted this man at 5:45 a.m. to dive into the Magic Johnson Steph Curry debate? No, I don't believe that.
MJ don't enter any conversation. Any conversation at all. So like, it is interesting. Let me ask you this question: If MJ did text Stephen A. Smith, right, and Stephen A. Smith took that information and put it out there on the show, you think MJ would ever text him again?
No, because the text said that, and you can tell them that I said that or something along those lines. Like, so if it was a text message, he got the approval to say it. I have a hard time believing that Michael Jordan, between being in France on his mega yacht or being on the golf course for 20 hours a day, between his NASCAR and his Formula One appearances, between all the stuff that you see him out drinking tequila out the bottle in Mexico, that he took time out of his schedule to text Stephen A to dive into the Magic Johnson Steph Curry debate. Why does he care?
That's how it be.
I have a hard time. I think Stephen A, when he tells his stories, there's truth to them underneath a lot of exaggeration. Underneath a lot of exaggeration. Remember when he said that Stephon Diggs told him he wanted out of Buffalo?
Oh yeah, and that's why you gotta be,
and Stephon said, bro, I never told you that.
And that's why you gotta be careful with what you say and how you say it, because you know, any athlete, anybody can go out there and refute those claims on their Twitter, on their Instagram, and you lose credibility just like that. I don't know. I agree with JP. He's a sensationalist.
He's an exaggerator.
That's what he is.
I don't think he's a liar. Yeah. I think he lies sometimes.
He's a great storyteller. That's
he's a storyteller.
You got to come in and be like, yo, yeah, MJ. I was talking to MJ last night. It might have been in passing. You might have seen MJ like, yeah, boom, really quick, and y'all moved on. Yeah, I was with MJ last night. We was drinking tequila. No, you had a tequila. He had a tequila. Y'all saw each other at the bar.
He's like one of those people who takes a picture with a celebrity and like the celebrity doesn't know them. It's like, yo, me and my brother. I'm like, I just met you, dog.
You know what's happening
Like,
now?
I just met you that day. He also kind of reminds me of my uncle. I have an uncle who is an exaggerator. He'll tell a story that has some truth to it. He'll say, back in my day, I was playing basketball in Hollis, Queens with no sneakers and in the middle of the winter. No, you weren't.
Man.
No, you weren't. You weren't playing. You may have had some beat up sneakers. It might have been cold outside. I can see
Ashley,
that.
Come on, Ashley. You
The,
never.
the hoop
you
might
never,
have not had a backboard. I could see that, but you didn't have no. You had shoes,
Ashley,
bro.
You never did this before. You never put a little salt on the story a little bit, a little sugar. You never did that.
I've done it like to my girlfriends when telling a situation about a guy. I'll be like, yeah, he did it, and I'm like, I exaggerate a little bit just to get.
Why
my
y'all
point
do
across.
that as women?
Just to get my point across.
Listen, that's why y'all don't be getting better sometime.